Hello there, you are listening to The Screen Queen, where you'll be finding your favorite movie or your favorite television show and learning something new. You'll just have to listen to find out. Here is your host, Samantha Parrish. Hello there and welcome back to the show. As always, my name is Samantha Parrish and you are listening to your media queen, The Screen Queen. So we're into the third episode of Anniversary August, and it was a matter of time before we got to talk about one of the biggest years in film, 1994. I mean, shit, you could throw a dart and find one of the best films ever made that exists within that year. This film is not one of them. I'm not gonna lie, it physically pains my soul to look at this movie. Swan Princess used to be one of my favorite childhood films to watch because you give me anything that has pretty colors, princesses, missions, everything. Oh, I'm sold. You already had me. Like, there was not a big checklist for me at 7 years old when it came to finding fairy tales for me. There is still some parts of this film that I do like, but after I grew up, it was kind of hard to miss the holes of this film, and, well, let's just say this film has more holes than the film Holes does. We all have that one movie that once we see a flaw, we can't really unsee those flaws, and that's exactly what I'm about to dish into in this film. So, I'm going to do my best to be kind to this movie, but fair warning, there's going to be a lot of rants. This is The Swan Princess. So the Swan Princess has existed long enough for this to be on someone's filmography. When I told my friends about this episode in advance, they do remember it, but I figured it was good to give a good memory refresher to this. But, oh my god, having to talk about the plot of the Swan Princess is, it's gonna be interesting. So the story follows this couple named Odette and Derek, if you can even call them one. They have been betrothed to be married since they were kids. It was their parents' ideas to have them marry so their kingdoms could unite. So the politics of these two kingdoms revolved on two kids hoping they would fall in love. And after a really weird childhood that was able to be summed up in one song, Odette and Derek just all of a sudden think each other are pretty hot. And Derek says, arrange the marriage. But Odette, she's got some rightful cold feet. She asks, what do you like about me? And Derek can't come up with an answer, and so they're not going to get married. But then Derek gets terrible news that the king and Princess Odette have been attacked by the the great animal, and now Odette is held captive by a sorcerer named Rothbart, who has the strangest name that has ever been given. And she's being held captive, but not very securely, as she's trying to figure out a way to break the curse that turns her into a swan. And meanwhile, Derek's trying to find her. That's your plot to The Swan Princess. It's kind of bizarre. The thing about this film when I look at it is that it feels like a fairy tale film, but it doesn't really give a fairy tale film. There are many elements that has these certain cliches of like wizards and cursed princesses and princes going to go save her. Like, it kind of feels like Swan Princess filled out a checklist, but they didn't really like show the work. If they just left that part blank, it's like saying these things that makes it a fairy tale film, but what makes a fairy tale film is the adventure that you want to see this through to the end. I don't even know what half these characters are doing that makes me want to root for them, which is one of the many holes in this film. But there is another reason why this film failed, and I can't really say it's partially to the reaction of the film because, well, there wasn't many people to see this film. The Swan Princess premiered on the weekend when The Lion King was doing a re-release. Oh. So not only did this film fail in every way as a fairy tale, but there was no one to even see this movie, because why would you want to go see these two people that don't even know if they like each other versus the lion version of Hamlet? I would see the lion version of Hamlet any day of the damn week. But that does make me bring up a point that I want to go ahead and get over with, and that's the animation. Now, I've mentioned the show before that animation is the bread and butter of my life. You give me anything with animation, I am sold. I am there. And like I mentioned, this film gave me everything that I was looking for as a little girl when I was all about that fairy tale life. But looking at it, it's not too hard to see that they basically just hit control, copy, paste for a majority of their stuff. And this has been mentioned by the Nostalgia Critic, who I praise regularly on my show. I like to think that I'm someone that can control how they're influenced by other reviewers. It's why I always say you choose how you want to be entertained. But when I watched the Nostalgia Critic's review of the Swan Princess, there's no going back. There's no way I can unsee the things that he pointed out. I'm going to link the video so you can see it for yourself, because he does a really good job with it. But there was mentions to Pinocchio, how the town in there looked like the town in Pinocchio. The dance sequence between Odette and Derek with the pink backdrop. It's Sleeping Beauty. Oh, like it hurts so much how unoriginal this fairy tale is. Now, it hasn't been confirmed if they were actually stolen, and it could be one of those cases where someone thinks of a idea and then might not know that it is buried in their brain from where they saw it originally. I mean, it happens to musicians, it happens to a lot of people. But with this being an original project, wouldn't you want to have original ideas? I mean, even right down to the animation being reused, like the kiss sequence being reused again. It's like, oh, I wish this film tried harder. I really did. Like, it amused me as a child, but now I can't unsee how this film did not live up to its potential. If that wasn't bad enough already, I also can't unsee the fact that they have unfinished cells not once, not twice, but 3 times in this movie. Oh, God. Okay, so I'm gonna slow the roll on the animation hate, and I gotta get into the next part that's probably gonna just tire me out, and that is the problem with the plot of the film. Now, ironically, the problem I'm talking about is not within the problematic characters, Odette and Derek. I'm going to save that for the next point. But when I went to go back and reanalyze the Swan Princess, the politics in this plot doesn't make sense. And again, this is supposed to be a kid's film, so you can kind of have it go one ear out the other. But if you're going to have something make sense, you don't want to feel stupid that you invested into something and didn't get what you wanted out of it. That's the whole point of movies and stories and everything, is you're getting to be involved with this world and you have to know how this world works. They explain their whole world building within the song, "This Is My Idea," and that paints the picture for everything. Compare that to, let's say, Do You Want to Build a Snowman from Frozen? That made the politics understandable in that film, and they followed through. The Swan Princess did not. Within the song "This Is My Idea," Odette's father, the king, wants to have the kingdoms come together, that when Odette and Derek marry, then that's just going to solve a whole bunch of problems. We can be able to just be like a joint kingdom, which is great. And I will admit that there is some talk about lower taxes and other benefits that are going to happen when these two kingdoms come together. But when you look at it on paper, it's a little bit messed up that this entire kingdom and Derek's kingdom are going to have to unify if these two kids marry. Like, the pressure they put on these two kids' shoulders, like, it's every flavor of messed up. There's no unseeing that now. And then there was the other part of this world building where the evil sorcerer Rothbart, I still hate to say his name, he wants to marry Odette for the sake of taking control of the kingdom. And I'm like, a sorcerer that wants to marry a princess, therefore being king and queen and taking control of a kingdom. Gosh, what does that remind me of? Oh, Wish. This is Wish. This is Wish before it came out. This is Wish 28 years ago. God, like, it hurt my head to have to make that comparison. Like, I would have given everything if Rothbart was trapped in a freaking mirror, just like the end of Wish. Like, I'm serious. When you really look at the world building and the politics, it's so unoriginal and how it doesn't fall through. I wish there was a different idea about how this was all going to work. But you know what could have worked? The fucking characters. Okay, so fair warning, I'm probably going to be screaming in this part because, once I saw the characterization for Odette and Derek and everybody else, like, it kind of hurts. You're going to have a couple of films where you're not going to like every single character, but yeah, you really don't like every single character here. Even right down to the sidekicks, I feel like that was wasted potential. This whole thing was built to be something similar to Disney while being refreshing, but it's just not. These characters don't have what Disney gave us or what even Nickelodeon characters gave us. It just did not have enough emotion behind everybody. The word love is used very loosely behind all of these characters, and it doesn't feel felt for how they're going to fight for each other. It's just not really a good motive to use for people and don't know why they love each other. And I'm just going to say it, Odette and Derek are probably the shallowest characters I've ever fucking seen in a movie. And I've seen my fair share of shallow characters. The fact that Derek can't find anything that he loves about Odette, despite having an entire childhood with her, that shows you where his brain is at. And just all of a sudden, oh, boom, I love you. Like, he's not thinking things through. Odette and Derek are like the kind of examples of characters that are emotionally immature, that they don't really know what they want. If anything, I can see them as great examples to show what not to do for a movie or what not to do for characters, and the idea of what you have to do to eventually become a mature person. Like, that's about as much as I'll give it. But I think what really hurts all these characters is that I don't know anything about them. There are some Disney or DreamWorks characters that you will meet within a certain time frame of 20 minutes, and then you feel like you know everything about them. I look at The Little Mermaid. I know Ariel is an adventurer, and she has a very strong heart. I know Jasmine is full of justice and quick wit. Derek, he likes archery, and he kind of loves Odette. But I don't know of anything he's been through. I just know things about him. Just like I know nothing about Odette now that I think about it. She's just beautiful and nothing else. I don't know anything about what she likes. She's just there. And I wouldn't even call her an arc corrector, since she also doesn't, like, provide anything. She's just there. That's kind of the sad thing about seeing these characters, is that they don't feel like characters. They just feel like cardboards. But then there's the other characters. And I feel like this kind of makes sense as to why things are so shitty. Like, I gotta point fingers at the king and queen for this movie, Odette's father and Derek's mother, that they just decided, oh my God, what if our kids married and then we could be a joint kingdom? Like, this whole film is technically their fault. They thought it'd be a good idea to put two people together, hope they fell in love, and trying to force a relationship upon them, and that would fix everything. And after Odette had to say, hey, like, we had a whole childhood together, you don't love me, so I don't want to get married to you. And Derek's mother just goes, all those years are wasted. it's like, well, yeah, of course, you shove two people in a room together and force them to love, think it's not gonna work out. I mean, yeah, Odette and Derek aren't any prizes to behold, but still, this can explain why, if I was forced to hang out with someone and say I'm gonna marry them, I'll be like, you can't force a life decision on me where I have my own life and my own choices. And unfortunately, Odette and Derek didn't really get a life choice process for this whole thing. They just got forced into it. And it's just shitty. Like, these are just shitty people that don't think about consequences of actions or what someone else wants. I like the Disney films where you have a character that wants what the other character desires because of how much they want their freedom or they want their dreams. There's nothing shared between all these characters that makes you want to root for them or see them want to be there for another person. Like, it's not there. It's why I say everyone is just shallow. Now, the sidekicks, I can cut them a break because we needed something else to look at besides Odette and Derek. I think the sidekicks are the closest thing to having a personality, or at least entertaining long enough that you're given something. When you have the talents of John Cleese and Stephen Wright, albeit they said yes to a very bizarre project, but at least there is some talent in this film, which helps a little bit. The way these characters interact with Odette is the closest that we're ever going to have to care about Odette, with the way that they are willing to help her. Like, that's the only thing I think I can give them. Okay, so I think it's about time to poke some holes into the main problem of this is, how come Odette couldn't leave? In the film, Odette is technically taken prisoner by Rothbart, and all he has over her is, you can't leave because once the moon is full, you'll turn into a swan. There's no, like, chain, there's no, like, nothing held against her, because clearly she doesn't love Derek. Her dad's gone. She has free will. He didn't, like, put a spell on her or anything. Like, he just basically says, you're gonna be here. It's like the weirdest version of Stockholm Syndrome. Like, shit, like, this whole prisoner thing made more sense in Beauty and the Beast than here. Belle had a choice. Belle could have left. Everything was exercised in Beauty and the Beast. Everything is not exercised in The Swan Princess. And again, I have to mention Doug Walker, where he did, like, go through every single plot detail to how nothing a part of Rothbart's plan makes sense. He just thinks, oh, well, Odette will do everything that I say, even though she has free will. Like, it's so sad they made a character like Odette not think of her own free will. Like, it actually physically hurts my soul to see a character just give up when there are chances. She could have left. She could have knocked out Rothbart. She could have called for help. There's so many things that she could have done. But all she does is sit there and cry. And it just makes you feel so bad to see a character care so little for their safety that they want to give up. We have characters that do not give up. I love some of the Disney films where I can get behind a character that is going to save the world or get what they want or save someone they love. Get themselves out of a situation, not lie down and die. It's terrible. Okay. So I'm gonna give this film a little bit of a break. And I'm gonna be a little nice to it. So I will say that the characters of Odette and Derek did slightly get more tolerable in the second and third film. I remember when my mom rented me the second and third film, which, shocked me because, again, this used to be my favorite film as a kid, so I was like, there's more. And I remember in the third film that is called, hang on a second, Escape from Castle Mountain. No, that's a creative fucking title. Anyway, there's a scene where Odette dies again. But the difference is how Derek reacts to it. I remember when Derek saw that Odette was gone for good right in front of his eyes, and he swung his sword around until it broke, and he just sobbed. There was no comforting term, it was just someone processing their grief that someone they love is gone. By all means, Prince Derek still isn't the sharpest tool in the shed, but knowing that the writers did something to improve his character just by a little bit to give him more of a moment to process the grief that he lost someone he loved. In the first film, there was no process. He just went right into, "Did you hear I made a vow for her?" It's so laughably bad. But then comparing it to the third film where he doesn't say anything and he just cries, it makes his emotions seem a little bit more existent. I gotta give credit where credit's due that the film series still doesn't have many improvements, but at least there was a slight improvement. Except for Odette, because she is still beautiful and nothing else. So, the other part that hurts my soul in this movie is the music. Now, before I go on my hate train again, I do have to say that the song "This Is My Idea," it is one of the best songs. Like, even though I don't have the strongest feelings for this film anymore, I can't deny that someone did a good job with that. Whoever did that, I want to give them a gold star. I can't say the rest for the other songs in this film. When we have a musical, you really want to see how the music is going to tell the story. And unfortunately, they're just filler songs. They don't do anything. They're not explaining anything. This Is My Idea explained more to the plot of the story to make us interested. There's a term I have when it comes to wasting someone's time in a movie by showing them something that they don't have to see. It's called jingling the plastic keys. And some of the songs really do feel like they're just jingling plastic keys in front of us to like, "Oh, look, it's pretty entertaining." Like, no. People are fucking smarter than that, and people deserve to have smart songs. The song "Practice, Practice, Practice" only served to show that Derek's really good at archery, because that's all we know about him, and kind of loving Odette. The love theme "Far Longer Than Forever" doesn't have any impact because we don't know anything about Derek and Odette, and they don't know anything about each other to love, so the song kind of seems virtually pointless. And then don't get me started on Princesses on Parade. Oh, God. There's not many songs in this movie. Oh, yeah. And then there's the "No Fear" song, which is supposed to be the anthem. Like it's trying to be Hakuna Matata. And nope. That wasn't going to happen. Oh, man. It's just terrible that there's wasted potential for music in this film, that all it needed was just, potential. But with all of this crapping on that I'm doing for this film, I do want to give an idea, and this is my idea, of how this film could have been fixed from the get-go. Now, take the segment of "This Is My Idea." So, what if there was a moment between Odette and Derek that wasn't all terrible? Maybe there's like a soft moment between the two of them that Odette had something terrible happen and Derek makes her feel better. I think that would allude more to how they would fall in love, because you got to see the potential and how they can be kind to each other. And you don't see that because they just happen to fall in love one day. So not knowing what their care is for each other, that doesn't really make it plausible for them to just fall in love out of nowhere one day. We don't know how these two people are going to take care of each other. Now, I do believe that sometimes love can happen out of nowhere, and that's great. But you got to at least trust the person that's randomly falling in love one day. Otherwise, it's a very scary thing to look at. And these are two very hollow-headed people that are falling in love, and that's not good. So I'd love to see there be maybe a remake in the future where you got to see Odette and Derek have a couple of moments. Then you can really feel more of the chemistry, and that you can kind of enjoy them just randomly falling in love one day. Rothbard isn't much of a villain because we don't really see him or his villainy. So far, for what we know, he cursed Princess Odette and he transformed into the great animal. but there's nothing really to him being a villain. There's no potential. There's so much to give him to make him feel like a scoundrel. I remember how much I hated Frollo in the way that he used power against certain people, or the way Scar was willing to kill his own brother to take the throne. There's a willingness in his character, but he's just too damn annoying. He'd rather complain and say, someday you'll be mine. It's like, how about make it that day? You claim to have all this power and you're not gonna fucking use it. Like, don't give a character power if they're never gonna use it. Okay, so we're on the downstretch. All right, man, I'm getting exhausted. This has been a tough episode on my... When I love a movie, I love it all the way, but when I hate a film, oh god, it kind of surprises me how much I heavily dislike this film now. But I have some ironic things to point out. So, one of the sidekicks, named Giacomo, is voiced by John Cleese. And the irony that he goes from voicing a frog prince to playing one of the most famous ones in a little film that I talked about a couple weeks ago called Shrek 2. It's a lovely thing to look at from that moment in the time capsule of the 90s, knowing 10 years later, John Cleese would be in a more fitting environment suited to his humor. I know probably had a good time, and I can sort of tell in the movie that he's giving 100%, but damn, he shines so much more in Shrek 2. But I wonder if they picked on him for the Swan Princess when he was in Shrek 2. But there's another thing that I don't find to be ironic, but I also can't unhear this, is Stephen Wright is the voice of Speedy the Turtle. I don't know if many of my listeners know who Stephen Wright is, but he is the radio host in Reservoir Dogs. To hear the guy that says, "This is K. Billy's Super Sounds of the 70s. And I'm like, that's Speedy the Turtle? Knowing that he was in this, it's kind of impresses me a little bit. I know Stephen Wright has been a solid comedian. It's still a little bit odd to see him in this now, knowing that his personality does not match the personality of the character, and that has been cited as criticism, but I kind of can't help but find that funny. Especially after I watched Reservoir Dogs. It's just a very interesting thing to look at, and now you guys know that. So, after all this, the last thing I think I have to say is Barbie did this story better. It's sad looking back at this story that is now 30 years old, that it still feels the same way that it was, that it could have had the potential to be so much more. It had the rotten look of appearing the same weekend as The Lion King, and it didn't really have a lot of things thought through. It just feels like a slap in the face to fairy tale films. For people that love fairy tales and want to grow up with them, Swan Princess is not one of those films that people grow up with and think fondly. They make fun of it, or they have an intense hatred for it, like me. And who knows, maybe there will be a future that someone can kind of take some notes from the flaws of Swan Princess and maybe make it a flawless film. There still are adaptations of the Swan Princess story, albeit some that did things extremely or just fun. So maybe one day Odette and Derek will have a happy ending, but I just don't think it existed in this adaptation. All right, well, I think I'm going to go ahead and just end cap this episode. This took a lot out of me. So now is the time to find out what the next episode is going to be for the 4th episode of the anniversary series. So, as always, I got my little thing of suggestions, and we're about to find out together. Alrighty. Alright, I got one. What are you? Okay. Alright. Okay. That'll be good. That'll be good. Alrighty. Wow, so we got a heavy one in my hand. So for the 4th episode on the anniversary series is going to be Kill Bill. And you bet your butt we're going to be doing Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2. I don't believe in that whole, like, separating it. I'm going to have the whole episode the way Quentin Tarantino envisioned it, all in one. Alrighty. So, thank you so much for listening to this rantful episode of The Screen Queen. If you have your own thoughts about Swan Princess that you would like to share with me, you can contact me on my Instagram at the Queen of the Screen. And if you're interested in listening to your Media Queen on another outlet, I am now available on YouTube. Now you have an easier way to listen to your Media Queen. And if you're interested in a little bizarre crime story, I have a book series called Inglorious Inc. and its prequel, The Company of Crime, available on Amazon. But that bad boy is available in the description box. Alrighty, you all take care now. Stay amazing. This is your Screen Queen, signing off. Bye-bye!